All right, I'm told we can start. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot for making it to this panel at a very late stage of the forum, right? So you're the brave ones. Thanks also to all of you those that are watching us on YouTube. Together with my co-moderator, Bilun Gunes, I'm very pleased to moderate this panel. Diplomeds, which is the organization I represent, together with the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, we are the knowledge partners of this panel. Let me use this opportunity to thank Friedrich Ebert Stiftung for a great collaboration, a great support, really. Okay, so Diplomeds stands for regional cooperation, stands for peace. I heard it was a lot about peace and regional cooperation in the previous panel, so we stay with the same topic here. We stand for a conflict resolution in the Mediterranean. Now, peace, regional cooperation is the focus of this panel today. You will agree, I guess, that the topic is very timely. Peace has never been such a high-hanging fruit in our region. At the same time, multilateral organizations that are supposed to implement, to advance this mandate of peace and security are challenged financially, politically, and then the same would go for civil society. It is not the right time to start a civil society project on mediation, peace, or conflict resolution. This is a very difficult time. So in this context, if you agree that the military might cannot be the only game in town when it comes to conflict resolution, then you need to think about who is well equipped to advance peace and security in the region, okay? And there we come to regional organizations. You will tell me security and peace are not primarily in the core business of Mediterranean regional organizations. We'll talk about some of them today with our fellow panelists. You're right, but then the question is still legitimate. How do you use and how do you leverage the mandates of regional organizations to advance peace and stability? So this question is legitimate, and I think that the peace words, I think you say that it was a very political word. I have a feeling that it is even a taboo word very often in regional organizations now. So in this context, our objectives with Bilun for this panel is to use the opportunity of this panel to make those regional organizations better known to our audience, and also to challenge the regional organizations to do more. Maybe not necessarily those that are sitting with us today, but the sponsors of those organizations, the member states that are part of these organizations. With this, so the good news is that we not only have a very timely topic, everyone agrees, we also have a fantastic panel to discuss this. The bad news, as always in this forum, is we don't have much time to discuss it. So for the sake of time, let me very briefly introduce the panelists, knowing that you can always go on the website and check more thoroughly the bio information of the panelists. I guess no need to introduce Androulla Vassiliou to this audience, very known to all of you, a vice president of Europa Nostra, a former European commissioner of Cyprus, in particular in the previous decade on education, youth, sport and culture. Marie-Claire Boillot is the senior energy and climate change expert at the UfM, Union for the Mediterranean, based in Barcelona, a very committed advocate for sectorial cooperation in the Med and how to leverage this cooperation. Alessandro Lamonica, you're the public policies manager at the Lindh Foundation. I guess the Lindh Foundation is known also to some of you. Alessandro, you will say more, obviously. And then, last but not least, also someone that is very familiar to you, Harry Tzimitras. Harry is the director of the Peace Research Institute, Oslo, the Cyprus Center of PRIO, and a member of Diplomeds, our organization for the panel. So with this, let me stop with the introduction and go directly to the discussion, maybe starting with a question to both Marie-Claire and Alessandro, starting with the basics maybe. Can you explain to our audience what do the Union for the Mediterranean, what do the Lindh Foundation do to contribute to peace and stability in our Mediterranean region, especially at this juncture, especially in the context of the conflict in Gaza and its fallout. So maybe the floor is to you, Marie-Claire. You all know that we don't have much time, so we go for snappy answers.
Okay, I try to make it short. Thank you very much for this invitation. I'm very happy to be here with all of you today. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, the UfM is definitely not, a crisis response mechanism to the region. But I mean, to put it in short, it's an island of hope, like a beacon of hope within the region. It is the only forum where 43 member states sit together and continue to sit together. Actually, we had a meeting with a representative of Ministers of Foreign Affairs a few weeks ago, and we have a ministerial meeting coming up in November. So, I mean, we realize that it's not enough, but it preserves a space for all those countries to continue to discuss. So obviously not about the, the political agenda that's going on in the region and, some states there, but it leaves this door open for regional dialogue and not always bilateral dialogue only, and it's extremely important. We're here with member states of the European Union that are all represented individually there. We're here for all the Mediterranean states that, around the sea that are represented, and also Mauritania, with this space of dialogue. So, I mean, this is a huge opportunity that's not always used as its maximum, obviously, but that exists. And I think just for that, it helps stability in the region with continuous cooperation in sectors that it can happen. So there's, sectorial cooperation going on in the energy sector, in climate resilience, civil protection. I mean, there's a lot of discussions between the member states on that. There are common, action plans. There are ministerial declarations where all the member states agree to continue working on certain topics. And it's a path to stability. I wouldn't say it's a path to peace, because that's more a political discussion, but it's a path to stability for the region. It's, it builds bridges between the north and the south, and between the member states of the south also. And I think it's very, very important to preserve that space. In addition to that, of course, the institution also is a convening power for discussions with civil society, with investors, with the private sectors, and also working to go beyond the region, further south of the continent, trying to build bridges with Africa, also with the Gulf states. So there's a will, and there's there's power in this institution, and there's a small secretariat, I mean, based in a very nice location in Barcelona, that is committed, to move forward the agenda of the region and to follow the pace of what the member states want to make of the institution. So I think that's, I would say.
Thank you.
So I think that Marie-Claire covered already some of the components of multilateral cooperation in the region. The Annalyn Foundation and the Union for the Mediterranean are sister organizations. We were born out of the so-called Barcelona process, started in 1995 to strengthen multilateral cooperation in the Euro-Mediterranean region. The difference with the Union for the Mediterranean is that the Annalyn Foundation, which is an intergovernmental organization, works with and for civil society. So our objective is to foster intercultural dialogue by working with universities, think tanks, specialized research centers, non-governmental organizations, and similar actors. This way we are very much complementary to what the Union does. We have the same member states in our board of governors, many of the representatives of the ministries of foreign affairs that are also at the UfM are present. This is better, definitely. Sorry. So there's a perfect alignment. We work at different levels. The Annalyn Foundation is the only regional organization that works for intercultural dialogue at the Euro-Mediterranean level, so it's quite unique. We do that in a vertical and horizontal manner. The vertical manner is by joining civil societies and the governments, because they are both part of our organization. The horizontal manner is to join the civil societies of these 43 countries. We work, of course, a lot on youth, for youth participation. We work for the implementation of the Youth Peace and Security Agenda of the United Nations, and also of the Youth Action Plan in External Relations of the European Union. So we are very much on meaningful participation of youth in policy and decision-making processes. Finally, a few years ago, we also established a public policies unit that I lead, and we added a small break to what we do. So it's not only action, but it's also policy influence and policy advocacy. And I think that this is particularly relevant because having more than 4,000 organizations across the Euro-Mediterranean region, we are able basically to maximize, to benefit, to cluster this knowledge and bring it to the fore of policy discussions in Brussels and elsewhere in the wider Mediterranean. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Alessandro. Okay, so this is clear. So far, we're going forward with the typology of regional. We'll continue going through different regional organizations in the Mediterranean after the UfM, the Lindh Foundation. We also have a number of organizations that are Mediterranean in their composition that are promoting sectorial cooperation. Some of you may have attended a panel this morning that was about the EMGF in particular, the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum. That's one of them. So with you, Harry, maybe we would like to understand better the power of sectorial cooperation in terms of planting, of its potential to plant seeds for regional cooperation and peace. So how can that be leveraged in the Mediterranean? Harry.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thanks. So two things, if I may. Let me go 30,000 feet up, as I usually say or do, and have a look at the place, but even beyond this region, and make a couple of general remarks that I think will boil down to the need for that. If I were to brand the whole endeavor, I'd say that we need to have principled realism. So be realistic, yes, but also try to be principled, because at the moment I think we're going to see, if we delve into it, a fundamental erosion of what we took for granted. What I mean to say is that the whole rules-based international order, as we've been knowing it since the end of the Second World War, is dead. And it's dead because the whole endeavor was anchored upon the ability and willingness of the United States to underwrite the system, and now the US is neither able nor willing to do so. So in particular in problematic regions like this, in particular in the case of smaller states like this one, what do we end up with if we take away the principles and rules? This is the only thing that's been anchoring us to an international system that is otherwise very, very problematic. Yes, granted, we've overdone it with some of the legal rules, but anyways. So point number one. Point number two, we're also going through a phase of the normalization of the exception and the legitimization of bullying. And if this is the case, again, unfortunately anchored by our very happy transatlantic partner, this also means that we desperately need to cling on to what we have or what we can in the form of multilateral fora in this region and beyond. Couple it with the crisis of multilateralism, the crisis of democracy, the crisis of electoral cases where electoral authoritarianism is coming up, plus transactionalism, and I think the case for the need to stick with multilateral institutions is very, very clear. On the other hand, as I think we've said before, cooperation is a little bit like cholesterol. You can have good cooperation and bad cooperation. So if cooperation is designed or ends up in being exclusionary, then I think it's going to be short-lived. So in this respect, we need to be, yes, pragmatic, but also principled and bring in frameworks within which countries can cooperate. I'm here then to make the case for cooperation in the sense that, in particular in the case of smaller, perhaps more vulnerable states like Cyprus, but not only, cooperative mechanisms are the only ones, I think, that can take us forward, both in a positive way, but also in a way that can make sure that delinquent behavior outside will not be tolerated. So with this, institutions like the East Med Gas Forum, problematic as it might be for 1,000 reasons, are better than not talking and not having frameworks within which, at least in principle, a discussion can be held.
Thank you very much. Harry, last but not least, we'll complete this first round of short interventions by you, Androulla, Vassiliou. With your experience as a commissioner, in particular on education, youth, sports, culture, I guess some of the things that Alessandro has put on the table resonate. So you know, with your experience, we'd like to understand how you see culture as a powerful trigger of peacemaking in this specific region.
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation. And it's a great pleasure to participate in this panel. Yes, being a commissioner for culture, youth, and sport was really a very rewarding experience, especially having to do with young people from very less privileged sectors of the society. For example, having to do with immigrant youth, Roma, and youth who came out of prison because of their criminal activities. I dealt with this group of people through culture and through sport. And I could see really the transforming power of culture and sport on these young people. And well, when we speak of peace, what do we really mean by peace? How do we start a peaceful process? By cooperation, as we all stress, by understanding each other, by respecting each other, by being happy. So through culture and through sport, we made these unhappy young people happy and peaceful. And we helped them to find a purpose in life. I will give you two very good examples of how culture transforms young people. The first example is the orchestra, which was set up by the Argentinian-Israeli famous conductor Barenboim, together with a Palestinian at the time, he's now dead, but Dr. Said, who set up this mixed orchestra between the Israeli children and the children from the Arab world. And we all know what was the result. Thousands of children have been trained and have learned the peaceful process, being happy, being cooperative with each other. The other good example is El Sistema, going to Venezuela with Obre, who was an educator and a composer. He collected at the beginning 11 children from the slum area of Caracas. They practiced at first in a garage, and then gradually they grew to a full-fledged orchestra. And now we have El Sistema orchestras in over of 60 countries in the world, including Cyprus, which is a recent example. 2 years ago, they set up this El Sistema. And these children were able really to discover their talents. And some of them became famous conductors of orchestras, like, for example, the San Francisco orchestra was conducted by one of these children who grew up through El Sistema. I will say that I was very disappointed a few years ago here in Cyprus on the initiative of a Turkish Cypriot violinist and a Greek Cypriot musician had the initiative of setting up a bicommunal youth orchestra, and it was fantastic. You know, we as the bicommunal committee on culture sponsored a number of their events, and it was fantastic. But they had to stop because of lack of financial support, and we lost them. We miss opportunities which can really give opportunity to young people to get to know each other, to work together, to understand each other.
Funding, you see, we go back to the issue of funding.
Yes.
Always. Well, okay, so now that was the easy part, right? I guess everyone agrees, but now back to regional organizations. If you want to unlock the potential of regional organizations in the Med to advance peace and stability, you need to understand their obstacles, right? You need to understand their limitations. And there is a paradox. This is exactly when these organizations are most needed in times of conflicts that, these limitations come to the fore, that their intergovernmental nature can become a handicap when tensions among the member states can lead to self-censorship from those organizations or to direct outright paralysis. So Marie-Claire, Alessandro, Harry, does this make sense? Could you maybe illustrate some of those challenges or share some examples and maybe share already some ideas of how to overcome them? Maybe that's a good point of the discussion to introduce for the knowledge of our audience what's going on now in terms of the UfM going through a major reform and what has happened over the last years with the Anna Lindh Foundation going through a very systematic consolidation of its model. So maybe we start in the same order, if you don't mind, with Marie-Claire.
Sure, yeah. I mean, as you say, it's a huge paradox, especially for an institution like the UfM that only works on consensus. So every single decision that's taken in this institution is consensus-based by 43 member states. And I mean, I think all of you know the 43 member states that are in that region and that obviously do not agree on everything. So it's a difficult path to move and to manage. So as Emmanuel has said, with the new realities in the region and the priorities, I mean, there was obviously a need to reform the institution to make it work better, to make it more efficient and more impactful, and to still work in that consensual manner. So it's been almost 2 years now since the reform process has been ongoing. So looking at what are the priorities for the region. So to determine that, all the member states were consulted. So all 43 member states were consulted. What do they think their priorities are? And then finding, which one seems to be the most important one that they would like to work together on them at a regional basis, not individually, not bilaterally, either the EU with one country or one country with the other, but regionally. How do we respond to today's threats in the region collectively? So following that, there was discussions, debates, and very dynamic debates, I would say, between the member states, coming out with a strategy that a new approach was needed, an approach on looking at security. So not in the sense as security, as military security, but how do we reach security in the region in terms of water, in terms of energy, in terms of, resilience to shock, civil protection, things like that. So there was a consensus on all those large priorities that member states thought there was a path that they could work together, and that would lead to a I mean, I wouldn't use the word peace again because I think it is controversial even in my organization, I mean, especially in my organization. So, and the way is there. So next month, hopefully, I think this reform will be adopted. Of course, it also led to changes within the Secretariat with, the priorities changing, with a new way of operating, with, requests for more money. I mean, we always go back to the core of it all. And I mean, there is a paradox, but it's doable also. And some member states can agree also to work on certain priorities together and others on other priority. And even if it's consensual, not everybody needs to work on everything together also. So there was an agreement also to move that way. So I think it's going the right path, and hopefully that's a way that we can make our institution more dynamic and operative with impact.
Thank you.
Thanks. So I would like to thank Harry for the lucid analysis that he just did of the international environment, and indeed it explains a lot of what is happening inside our organizations, the UfM and the Anna Lindh Foundation. Indeed, the crisis of the international liberal order and the fact that we live in an increasing multipolar world where power politics is the new normal, is making the life of regional organizations that, as Marie-Claire said, are based on consensus particularly difficult. And indeed, especially after October 7, the Androulla Foundation experienced, to a certain extent, some issues at the intergovernmental level. Just to make it very brief, we have a board of governors. In the board of governors, the representatives of the ministries of foreign affairs of the 33 countries are sitting and deciding together. They are all still at the table, so no one withdrew, and they are committed to continue. But of course, the increasing tensions and the fact that there is war in our region is not making things easy. One of the consequences is a certain degree of self-censorship on the end of regional organizations, and it has been the case in a few contexts, also for the Androulla Foundation, and the risk to focus too much on what I would call low politics, so sectoral cooperation. Sectoral cooperation is key, but I think it's not enough, because it erodes over time the norms-oriented approach of our regional organization. Lastly, the fact that that's also the case of the UfM and the Androulla Foundation. I think it's a good case study. We were born out of the same cooperation framework. We still have, to a certain extent, fragmented mandates and a little bit of competition. This is not helping, of course, in a context where crisis is so wide. Therefore, what are we doing at the Androulla Foundation? Very briefly, I would say 4 main points. First, cooperate more and more with the UfM. So this is a commitment on both sides, looking for complementarity and the integration of approaches on many different policies, especially on youth. Second, as we might experience in the future some intergovernmental paralysis in our board of governors, to invest even more on bottom-up participation of civil society in our internal decision-making. So to have civil society as a resilience anchor. Just to make it very brief, together with the board of governors, so the governments, we have, of course, our heads of network. So in each country, in each of the 43 countries, we have a head of network that is a non-governmental organization. These 43 head of network participate in our decision-making and in the distribution, of course, of our activities and implementation. Third, to mainstream even more youth and education in our peace infrastructure. We are investing more and more in supporting the youth peace and security agenda. For example, in October, together with the European External Action Service and Search for Common Ground, that is another relevant organization that works on this field, we are organizing the Conference of Youth Peace and Security on a global level. And last but not least, and that's why we created the Public Policies Unit, to scale up foresight and knowledge. So we really believe, of course, in evidence-based policymaking, and we believe that evidence-based policymaking can be an antidote to part of what is happening, especially if we look at transatlantic relations. Thank you.
Thanks to you. And Harry, obstacles, limitations of those organizations that are dealing with sectorial cooperation in the Med?
Both obstacles, but possibly also suggestions to move things forward. Yeah. The short thing is wake up. I really we need to wake up in the sense that every day that passes with problems unresolved, add new layers to them, painting a matrix that it's very difficult, if possible, to tackle. Third, deal with what we can, because what's coming to us is going to be major. None of our important but small problems as they are compared to the bigger things coming to us as environmental degradation that is going to be hitting the very basis of our existence. Bear in mind that the East Med and the Middle East are, as per the UN, the #1 area on the planet where climate change is happening the fastest, and it's happening. So don't lie back and do nothing about it. Fourth, neither friends nor enemies are forever in international relations. And I'm afraid our transatlantic connection shows us the friends part at the moment. So connected point, we can't take things for granted anymore in the way we knew. Try to keep the institutions that we have, because that's the only thing we can possibly cling on. then I'm not tired of saying this again and again. There is no such thing as a frozen conflict. Look at what's happening around us, from Lebanon to Gaza, from Nagorno-Karabakh to Syria, from Yemen to Cyprus. Nothing can be taken for granted. There's nothing as a frozen conflict. Anything can erupt, and then unfortunately what we had will look good. Three ways of suggestions of moving forward. One, this is something that we do a lot in Diplomeds, try to introduce the notion of connecting the dots. Connecting the dots geographically, what's happening in the East Med is affecting the West Med and vice versa. Unfortunately, we don't do that. We do good work in each of the two, but rarely establishing a connectivity. Also, thematic connectivities. Good work we do in energy, in migration, in human security, in water, in gender rights, but not connected. One is driving the others, and I think otherwise we're just prescribing painkiller medication rather than dealing with the root cause. Suggestion number two, refocus from war and peace to things that can be managed on the ground. War and peace might elude us. Unfortunately, multilateral institutions dealing with it have been less than successful, but still important to have. But there are things that need to be done on the ground, irrespective of that, connecting to what we were discussing on the previous panel, things that need to be done on the ground, irrespective of a solution, be it environmental, gender, human security issues, and so on and so forth. And suggestion number three, try to maintain what we have, not without being critical to it, including the European Union that we love to bash all the time. It's very problematic, it has lost impact, credibility, but imagine for a minute the world, our world without it. Same with the United Nations. Problematic to the core, but imagine what it would be without it. So let's try to support it as a matter of principle and not just dismantle it.
Thank you very much. Before I hand over to my co-chair, let's say complete this round. Androulla, you gave already some examples of how culture can be used to advance peace and stability in the region. But maybe we can perhaps start with your own experience with Europa, Nostra in particular, the heritage hub in Nicosia, because we were lucky to have you here. So maybe you want to say a few words on your experience.
Certainly. Well, Europa Nostra is the most representative heritage movement in Europe, with its wide network as its strongest asset, because it covers over 40 countries. It's not only the European Union countries, but all European countries. So in 2023, the European Commission, together with the European Parliament, decided to start a pilot project called the European Heritage Hub Project. And therefore, Europa Nostra was entrusted with the coordination of over 20 different organizations in order to carry on this work. And already Europa Nostra hubs have been created in Krakow, in Athens, in Lisbon, and now in Nicosia, Cyprus. The purpose of the Nicosia hub is to join the Eastern Mediterranean countries, and especially we're talking about NGOs, with the Middle East NGOs for the purpose of cooperation through culture and cultural heritage. And already we are very happy that we have connected with a number of NGOs in Egypt, in Syria, in Palestine, in Jordan, and in Lebanon. And they are very, very eager to work with us in order to promote heritage. And of course, I must say that we could not possibly aspire to become a bridge between Europe and the Middle East without forming a bridge between our communities, our own communities. Therefore, Europa Nostra hub in Cyprus, in Nicosia, has already 2 members on our board from the Turkish Cypriot community and a number of members as well. So, and the 2 representatives of the 2 communities of Nicosia, Mr. Brunzos and Mr. Harmanji, are both agreed to be supporters of our hub. So we are starting very well, and this week week, we have arranged already to have a Zoom meeting with several NGOs from the region to see on which projects that we have envisaged are willing to work with us, and in what way they can contribute. Now, all this is very easy to say, but the problem again comes to the finance, because already for our work in Cyprus, we have secured finance from the European project, but this cannot possibly cover, for example, cost for the traveling and the accommodation of NGOs from the region. So I'm looking forward to meeting with some of the regional organizations with the hope that they will be able to help in bringing in the project people from the area, because I am sure that through culture and cultural heritage, we shall be able to build up the foundations of peaceful coexistence and peace. Thank you.
Thank you. We have been discussing Mediterranean regional cooperation on the assumption that the Mediterranean remains a meaningful arena for engagement. Yet the Mediterranean is not such a systematically administrative reality in terms of ministries of foreign affairs. And there are arguments that are signs of Mediterranean fatigue. Could we have 1 minute from each one of our panelists if they could go into explaining how Mediterranean is still a valuable and relevant matrix of engagement, and why its potential should be further strengthened? Starting with you, maybe, Mark.
Sure. I mean, as was said, I think earlier by Alessandro also, the Mediterranean area is an area, and maybe not administratively, but it is somehow, anyway, de facto, through our institutions that are represented by the member states of the region. So it's the only, you know, we are the only institutions that represent the region, and this is something we need to cherish and that we need to use properly at, you know, at the level of member states, with civil society, with the private sector. I mean, as I said earlier, I don't think we can afford the luxury of saying that, you know, we're not together, because we are together in this. I mean, as Harry has said, we're also going to face challenges that, I mean, are already here from many of our countries. And that are going to be exacerbated with time. So we need to work together to find solutions together, because conflicts do not see borders, weather doesn't see borders, you know, all those threats that are coming to us and that are already here do not have borders. And we do have all those common challenges that we need to tackle together. So, I mean, it's really important that we continue working together. And I think that most of the countries in the region agree on that in principle. So it's just finding the way to make it work.
Thank you. Harry?
A positive and a negative. The positive is, well, the negative is that we're united by the bonds of common suffering. So unfortunately, we have common problems, as you were saying rightly. There are certain things that can only be tackled through concerted action. Positively, there are some opportunities that can also only be seized off through concerted action. And so in this respect, when there is a will, there is a way. I don't think we have the luxury of sticking with what we had before. This can be either in the way of positive, let's say, using this broader area for the deployment, even for the good of Europe, of renewable sources. The only region that physically has the space to do so would be this. Reversely, in the case of migration and connected issues, if we don't do anything about it, then the hardcore of Europe that sometimes objects are going to be facing the outcomes of the pressures from climate on migration. So I think we need to look, A, at the region for the sake of the region, and secondly, for the region in its connectivity in positive or negative ways to other regions and concentric circles around it.
Androulla, yeah.
Yes. Well, I mentioned before the next projects of Europa Nostra Cyprus. We have agreed on 5 projects, but one of them is really referring to the Mediterranean, the challenges in the Mediterranean, and the effects of climate change on the environment, on the people, and on our culture. So this will be one of the major themes that will be discussed during the Europa Nostra summit in Nicosia next May. So yes, Mediterranean is something which is very important. It's our mare nostrum, and therefore we have to protect it and respect it. Thank you.
Alessandro?
So I would say that the Mediterranean is an area of shared destiny. So history teaches that us a lot. We cannot escape geography. So the Mediterranean is going to be forever probably a strategic area for all the communities, cultures, and governments that sit around its shores. So that's the first point. The second one, if we look at what is happening in Brussels, where I'm based, on October 16, the College of Commissioners is going to adopt, hopefully, the new Pact for the Mediterranean. That's an evolution of the Barcelona process that I was referring to, and it's coming at a moment of crisis specifically to address together, meaning the 27 countries of the European Union, plus our strategic partners in the south and east of the Mediterranean, the crisis that we are living through. The Commission also created DG MENA, so a specific directorate focused on the Middle East and North Africa. That's another sign that this region is becoming more relevant and strategic for Brussels and European institutions. And third and last, if the international liberal order is fading away, maybe it is about time to invest even more in regional cooperation and in multilateralism across and around the Mediterranean. And one last thing is democratic security. So this kind of soft security that is not hard, it's not about defense, it's not about the military, but it's about our own democratic institution. It's a long-term investment, but it's by investing in civil society that we ensure that democracy is still a stronghold of our way of life, and this increases security for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have some questions from the ground? Yes, thank you very much for the panel and everyone. Thank you.